What I'd like to do now is to open things up for questions and comments from those of you here in the audience. But to get us started, I'd like to take the liberty as moderator just to sort of ask the first couple of questions to get us all thinking, as it were. But I'd like to ask the first question of you, Dr. Gilbert, and it's triggered by something that I think you said or alluded to earlier. I wonder if you could say just a little bit more about, just briefly about some of the research that establishes a correlation or a causal relationship between culturally based instruction and student academic achievement, particularly in among Indian students or even beyond.
Press the button. Not the ejection button, but the button. Thank you very much for that question. I think it's a really important issue. I've been working in the field in higher education for 23 years, and I was an elementary ed teacher before that. But one of the things that brought my attention to when I was growing up in school is that the idea of being punished for my language. And I thought education doesn't start in the classroom. Education starts at home, and teachers are the first. Parents are the first teachers. With that concept, working with the National Science Foundation. In my project, what I did was I brought in native culture and knowledge and understanding of what science to their culture means to them. And what I did was I brought that in. We wrote supplemental curriculum. We trained teachers to be culturally responsive teachers and instructors. We worked with community members. We worked with cultural experts from the local community. So when the supplemental curriculum was written, it was written from the standpoint of the people. So they took ownership in that curriculum. But not only that, but also we also included the national science standards, included state standards, included also if they had cultural tribal standards, we also included that in the curriculum. And one of the things that we found out was using two experimental groups, control and experimental group, is that if you do bring in the mores, the culture, knowledge, understanding, the language into the curriculum, and you integrate it with the existing curriculum in the classroom, then it does make a difference, not only academically, but also socially as well. Tell you one real quick story, if I may. In regard to doing a pre and post test on an attitudinal survey, which we did. But one important thing that I did too was that besides that, I went into the classrooms before and afterwards, and I asked my students before, I said, draw me a scientist. We're talking about 5th grade students. Because this got me to thinking about what Dr. Vasquez had talked about in textbooks. Nothing looks like or relates to them. So when I asked my students to draw me a scientist, as 5th grade students, I asked them to take out a piece of paper, draw me a scientist. And of course, they ask you all kinds of questions. What do you want me to draw? What's a scientist? I said, you draw me a scientist. And what do you think they drew? They drew the Einstein figure of scientist in which they see in textbooks. So at the conclusion of the program, I came back to the same students again in the classrooms, and I asked them to draw a scientist, posing the same question to them again. And who do you think they drew? They drew themselves. So even with that small period of time, you can change the attitude of the students. For some reason or another, our native students get turned off somewhere in their educational system when it comes to sciences and the mathematic fields. So, thank you.
Dr. Dimple, I just very quickly want to stay with this theme that Dr. Gilbert just established, and I wonder if you would comment on it a little bit further, but particularly as it relates to the education of African American boys. The notion that instruction that is not appropriately culturally based may have somewhat of a deleterious effect on those young people academically. I wonder if you'd comment on that just a bit.
Well, there's research, and I can't cite the author, but there's research done with African American children that those children who are well grounded in their own culture achieve better in class. There's also research that if you do a short-term training program with African American males on resilience and you use culturally pride as one of the issues, that you can, and if you do it in middle school, you can really turn around. I mean, a short-term intervention with the same lousy school structures, the same teachers, the same everything. You can turn around have retention in the 9th grade and have these boys take higher level classes. So those of you who are doing programs for African American children, particularly African American males, may want to do some kind of resilience-based, culturally grounded thing in middle school. That's where we're going in our center.
Thank you. For those of you in the audience who may have questions and comments, what I'd like to ask you to do is if you would make your way to the microphone in the back there, just give us your name and then call out your question, obviously loud enough so that we can pick it up on the recorder, and just whoever you'd like the question to be answered by. As we're waiting for our first question, let me just ask one final sort of a follow-up to Mr. Baker. Can you comment a little bit on what kind of impact you're finding in Prince George's County as it relates to some of the training you've been doing with local teachers?
It's very interesting, and the impact that we've found was very good in the sense that we toured a lot of schools in Prince George's County where you had individual teachers that actually got it, that knew how to be culturally sensitive, that understood that you take the child where they are, not just in terms of academics, but in terms of their surrounding, their parents' surrounding, and all of that, and how do you engage them in the process. And one of the things that we were able to do with our program is actually to develop a cohort in Prince George's County of teachers who may be, and if you know anything about our county, it's really large. So you may be on, and the other thing that's very interesting about Prince George's County is it's a unique place in that it is urban, suburban, and rural, all in one school district. So can you imagine the problems that you face? You're not just talking about urban education, you're talking about rural education, you're talking about suburban education, and all within the same school district. And so what we were able to do is to develop cohorts throughout the school district who can contact each other and ask questions. Because if you're in the southern part of our county, which tends to be the rural part, which the education system up until recent was mostly African American and maybe a small percentage of white students, that district is now mostly African American and a larger percent of Latino students, with a school system, with a school itself that has never dealt with the increase of a Latino population. And so getting them together with folks who are in the urban part of our county who've dealt with it, and developing that cohort, we found has been very helpful. And let me just end on this note, because the other interesting things that's going to happen and that we'll face in our education system is culturally competent teaching will also incorporate this new generation. In our urban district, it's African American, Latino, small percentage of white, who are hip hop, who are a new generation. Their whole thing of how we develop this way of teaching them is actually different than the standard Latino population that you would maybe teach if you were in maybe 10 years ago, or you were in D.C. and it was an El Salvadorian population and they were English as a second language. But it's a different culture, even than the African American culture. And so learning how to teach that culture is the next new wave.
Can I just say one thing? We're having a meeting on Friday where a young man from the University of Maryland is going to teach, hopefully, a large number of teachers how to use hip-hop for instruction. And so it's free if you want to come. It's in the morning, and it's at, where is it? Let me think about it. I'll tell you as soon as I can remember.
Will it be on your website?
Yeah. It'll be on our website. It's free. It's this Friday, and he's very good. He teaches teachers how to integrate hip-hop into instruction. I mean, some of our teachers are so far from that it's like, when I announced it as free on the web to, 5 million teachers, not too many signed up right away. I had to encourage hip-hop in instruction. Are you kidding?
The website is maec.org.